he came from a very wealthy background. He had a lot of wealth and he had a lot of land. But when he accepted Islam and he did hijrah, he left all of that for Islam and he traveled to Medina. And when he went to Medina, he worked as a stableman for Talha ibn Ubaidillah. And he tended to his horses and made sure they were fed, and whatever needs that they had, he tended to them. And he was paid with food. And he took that much food that he would be able to live, that he would be able to keep his back straight. And some of his stories, they're so surreal to us that when we hear them, we think that, is this even true? But these stories, they're authentic. They're reported by Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim. The first one is that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he set out with 1,500 companions to do Umrah, and they were rejected by the Quraysh. Then Uthman radiallahu anhu, he was sent inside of Mecca to do sulh, to reach a conclusion. And news had spread that the Quraysh had actually killed Uthman radiallahu anhu. So when this news had spread, then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he started taking bay'ah from all the companions, a pledge of allegiance, that they would be ready to do qital, to fight, and be ready to even be martyred for Islam. And when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam started taking this bay'ah, Salama ibn Aqwah radiallahu anhu, he was the first person to give this pledge of allegiance. And after him, many other Sahaba started to give their pledges too. They started taking bay'ah too. And after a wave of Sahaba had taken, because there were 1,500, so after a wave of Sahaba had taken the pledge, then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he called out to Salama that, "O Salama, will you not take bay'ah?" So he replied, "Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I have already taken bay'ah." So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Again." So he took it again, and this happened 3 times. So over here, he had the fadila, he had the honor of not only being the first, but also to take the pledge 3 times. And also we know that the first and the last of amal are very important. So he had all 3 of these honors. And there's a small story in between chronologically, but I'll skip that since the last one is very long. So when the Sulh of Hudaybiyah took place and all the Muslims went back to Medina, after a little time, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had many camels. So they went back to Medina, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent his camels to graze out in the desert. So Salama ibn Aqwah radiallahu anhu, since he used to take care of the horses for Talha ibn Ubaidillah, he decided that I'll go out with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had sent Rabah to graze to have the camels graze. So Salama radiallahu anhu, he decided to go out and accompany him. And he took with him his bow and arrows. And he was, as we'll see later on, he was very proficient in archery. So they reached a place to the north of Medina called Al-Ghar. And over there, they spent the night, and they had taken their animals and they were grazing over there. And in the middle of the night, people from Banu Ghatfan, they had attacked on the camels of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Salama radiallahu anhu, being a very proficient archer, he told Rabah to take the horse. There was only one horse. So he told Rabah to take the horse and go back to Medina and get support. And Salama radiallahu anhu, since he was a very fast runner, he used his own 2 legs to attack the people from Banu Ghatfan. So he says that, I climbed a hill near Thaniyatul Wada, and Thaniyatul Wada is a few miles. There's ikhtilaf on exactly where it is, but it's a couple miles away from Medina. And from there, he called out towards Medina that Ya Sabaha, which was a way for people to give a warning, especially for when fighting was taking place. And over here we see that Salama radiallahu anhu, he had another amazing quality, was that he had a very long-reaching voice. His voice would reach very far. And from there, after making the nida, after making the announcement, he took off in pursuit of these raiders, and one by one كانوا يصيبهم, he would hit them with his bow and arrow, and he would mark them with such a speed that people thought, those people from Banu Ghitfan, they would think that there's a whole army behind us. And he would chase them away, and every time he would hit one of them, he would say, "Take this, for indeed I am the son of Aqwah, and today is the day of the suckling child." And he kept chasing them, and he kept chasing them, until all of the camels that Rasulullah ﷺ had sent grazing, they were free. But even at this point, he didn't finish. He kept chasing them, and in order to flee him, the raiders, they started throwing away their items so that they can lighten their load and they can run away. And in doing this, they had discarded 30 spears and 30 cloaks. And at the end, I'm skipping a little bit since it's going on for quite a time. But so at the end, they got tired and they settled down. And at this point, the support from Rasulullah ﷺ had caught up, but Salama radiallahu anhu, he didn't delay. He kept going after, and he kept fighting them. And in the end, he was able to take 2 of their horses as well, and he was able to send them all the way back to where they came from. So what do we learn from this is that, one, the importance of being healthy in Islam. I'm sure all of us have at least heard one person saying that, "Oh, when Imam Mahdi comes, I'm going to be the first to join his army." But what is our condition? Are we physically fit? We're eating biryanis and salans every other day, and mashallah, we have bellies. So Umar radiallahu anhu actually scolded a person once that he's so fat, you're not even able to ride a horse. You can't even ride a horse, how are you going to fight? So this is the first thing that we learned, that Islam has a very big importance on being healthy. Secondly, we see that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they loved Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam more than their own selves. Salama radiallahu anhu, once the camels were safe, he could have left. He could have left the people that were attacking. But no, he kept on going. Why? Because they had harmed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So how can we implement this in our day and age? A lot of times what happens is, when we get into the fiqhi debates, we say, "Oh, this is fard, this is wajib, this is just sunnah." Just is a very innocent word, but it has a very big effect when we say just sunnah. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, once Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam passed away, they would travel hundreds of miles just for one hadith. Over here we have the entire books of hadith on our phones, and we say this is just sunnah. So rather, we should have a high importance for sunnah and say, this is the sunnah, I'm going to follow the sunnah. I'm going to implement a new sunnah. We should have a goal that every single week or every single day, I'm going to try to implement a new sunnah in my life. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that, subhanAllah, we're already in the last 10 days of Ramadan. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are able to recharge our iman so that we can last another year, and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He protect us from those that Jibreel alayhi salam, he made a dua against them, that Ramadan comes upon them and they're not forgiven. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we are protected from that, and we are able to change our lives and continue past Ramadan, inshaAllah. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.